The house had never felt truly silent, not before the accident, and certainly not after. Grief had a way of filling every hallway, of pressing its cold palms against the walls until they seemed to pulse and breathe like something alive. But that morning, when Claire awoke standing in the middle of the kitchen barefoot, the chill was far sharper than anything grief alone could create. Her feet were wet. Her toes were red. And the kitchen floor was covered in a thin trail of mud, leading to the basement door. She didn't remember getting up. She didn't remember walking. She didn't remember opening anything. She rarely remembered anything these days. Sleepwalking. Again. She blinked at the muddy trail as if staring hard enough might explain it. But the truth was simple, she hadn't left the house yesterday. It had rained all night, sure, but she hadn't stepped outside. She couldn't bring herself to any more. Not since the accident. Not since the police sirens. Not since the screaming. Not since the silence afterward. Her daughter, Lily, gone instantly. Her husband, Michael, still alive, but barely. And Claire alone. A shuddering breath scraped its way out of her throat. She grabbed a towel and crouched to wipe the floor, her hands trembling. But the mud wasn't what made her stop, it was the faint footprint she uncovered beneath it. Not hers. Bigger. Wider. A man's. Her own hands recoiled as if burned. No, she whispered to the empty house. It's just. I'm imagining things again. She'd seen Michael in the house before, shadows shaped like him passing doorways, reflections of him in darkened windows, the creak of footsteps matching his weight. But each time she looked, he wasn't there. Couldn't be. He was in a hospital bed somewhere across town, unmoving, unblinking, unreachable. But grief twisted reality like a wet towel wrung out too tightly. Claire pressed a hand against her forehead and forced herself to breathe. 1, 2, 3. A sudden creak split the silence. The basement door slowly drifted open. She froze. Her fingers curled into the towel. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with damp earth and something else, something metallic, bitter, almost copper-like. Blood. No, she whispered again, but denial felt small and useless. A draft blew through the cracked doorway, lifting the stray hairs on her arms. She reached forward, intending to shut it, but stopped halfway when she noticed the bottom edge of the door. Deep scratches, the kind left by fingernails, ran across the wood. Her stomach knotted. Had she done that? During one of her episodes? Scratching like an animal trying to escape. Or worse, enter. She stumbled back until her spine hit the counter. Claire. Her name drifted through the house like a sigh. A soft, hoarse whisper. From the basement. Her breath hitched. Lily. But the voice wasn't her daughter's. No. No, it was too deep. Too familiar in the worst possible way. Claire. Her husband's voice. She pressed both hands against her ears, sinking to the floor, shaking her head hard enough that her teeth clicked. You're not here. You're not here. You're not. The whisper came again, closer this time, rising from the basement stairs like a man climbing one step at a time. Thump. 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 She squeezed her eyes shut, tears spilling over. When the basement door creaked wider, she opened them just enough to see a shadow spill across the kitchen tiles. Broad shoulders. A tilted head. A silhouette she knew better than any other, one that had once stood over her in rage, that had slammed doors, shoved her, screamed in her face, broken her down inch by inch until she felt like air. Michael. But he wasn't there. He couldn't be. He was hooked to machines. Tubes. Monitors. Unconscious. Dying. Unless the house was lying. Or her mind was. Or the thing whispering her name wasn't him at all. She scrambled backward, her heel knocking into a fallen cereal bowl. The crash echoed through the house like shattering bone. The shadow paused. Then something scratched the floor, slow, dragging, like fingers pulling themselves forward. Claire bolted upright, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it with shaking hands. She pressed her back to it, breathing in quick, panicked gasps. The wood against her spine trembled, as if something on the other side had rested its forehead there too. A whisper seeped through the cracks. "You left me." Her blood turned to ice. "No," she whispered. "I didn't leave anyone. You left us." Silence. A silence that felt wrong. Listening. Waiting. Then she smelled it, damp soil, dead leaves, and the faint lingering scent of her husband's cologne. She fled the kitchen. When she reached her bedroom, she locked the door, collapsed onto the bed, curled into herself, and clung to the only truth she had left. She was losing herself. Losing sleep. Losing the line between dreams and reality. Because if she wasn't dreaming, then something was in the house with her. Something wearing Michael's voice. Claire didn't remember falling asleep. One moment she was curled on top of the covers, shaking, staring at the locked bedroom door as if it might pulse again like the basement one had. The next, she was somewhere else entirely. She was standing in the hallway. Barefoot. Breathing too loudly. Staring down a corridor that didn't look like hers. Her walls were narrower here, wet, almost flesh-like. The wallpaper bulged in places, swollen with dark stains that pulsed faintly like veins. The light overhead flickered in glitching spasms, casting jittery shadows that seemed to jerk in unnatural movements. This was wrong. She pressed her hand against the wall, gasping at the warmth beneath it. It throbbed, as if something living pulsed under the paper. She snatched her hand back. "Wake up." She tried to tell herself the words, but her mouth didn't move. A hollow thump echoed behind her. She spun. The hallway stretched into darkness that wasn't empty. There, at the very end, something shifted. Slowly. Like a person leaning forward from the shadows. Her breath stuttered. "Lily," she whispered. The shape didn't answer. It only tilted its head. Not Lily. She felt it before she knew it. Michael. Her husband's silhouette, tall, heavy, unmistakably him, stepped forward. One step. Then another. The sound of his limp, drag shift, scraped along the floor. No. He didn't limp before the accident. But the thing wearing his outline did now. Claire backed away until her shoulders hit a door she didn't recognize. The knob jiggled beneath her hand, rattling. Locked. Every door in this warped version of her house was locked. "Stay back," she whispered, her voice barely air. The silhouette didn't stop. It reached the range of the flickering light, revealing nothing but a darkness deeper than shadow, like he wasn't made of flesh, but of emptiness so dense it swallowed the light around it. His voice seeped out, gravelly and broken. "You walk, in your sleep." Her breathing froze. "You come to me," the voice rasped. "Every night." She shook her head violently. "No. No, that's not real." "You stand by my bed," the voice continued, inching closer, "and you whisper things you don't remember." Her heart pounded like fists against bone. "You tell me," it croaked, "that you wish I never woke up." Claire pressed her palms hard against her ears, trying to drown the sound out. But the voice wasn't coming from the silhouette anymore. It was coming from inside the walls. Deep. Rumbling. Surrounding her. She felt the house breathe. The wallpaper inhaled. The floorboards quivered. The ceiling creaked as if something crawled above it. Her vision blurred, the hallway twisting like a funhouse mirror melting. The silhouette broke apart, splintering into smoky tendrils that slithered across the floor toward her feet. "Stop," she begged. "Wake up. Please wake up." The tendrils curled around her toes, cold and wet like grave soil, wrapping higher around her ankles. She tried to pull away, but her legs moved thick and heavy as if she were sinking into mud. "You walked away," the voice growled. "No. You saved yourself." "No. You left us." Claire screamed, and the world shattered. She jolted upright in her real bed, drenched in sweat, clawing at her blanket like it was strangling her. Her chest heaved with wild, uneven breaths. The room was dark. Still. Real. She pressed the heel of her palm against her forehead. "Just a dream," she whispered. But her whisper trembled. Because something was wrong. Her bedroom door was open. All the way. She stared at it, unable to breathe. She had locked it. She was sure. She remembered twisting the lock, checking it twice, 3 times, before collapsing onto the bed. Her legs slid off the mattress before she realized she was moving. She padded to the door, swallowing the rising bile in her throat. The hallway beyond was dim, lit only by the faint glow of the kitchen nightlight far downstairs. And there, in the carpet just beyond her doorway, were footprints. Mud again. Wet. Fresh. Trailing down the hall. Her own prints were smaller, thin, delicate, the shape of a woman's foot. But next to them, overlapping them, were larger ones. Her knees weakened. Someone had walked beside her. With her. Or through her. She followed the prints with trembling eyes until they faded halfway down the stairs. Then she saw it. A shadow at the bottom of the staircase. Still. Waiting. Head tilted. Just like in the dream. Her breath left her in a single, thin gasp. She closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, the shadow was gone. But the whisper that floated up the stairs wasn't. "Claire, come back down." Her blood iced. Because this time, it didn't sound like a dream at all. Claire stood frozen at the top of the stairs, the whisper still drifting through the dark like a cold breath pressed against the back of her neck. Her knees trembled so violently she had to grip the railing just to keep herself upright. "Claire, come back down." Her heart jolted. She knew that voice. Not just as Michael's voice, no. As the voice he used when she disobeyed him. When she angered him. When she dared to speak for herself. A tone soaked with warning, with unspoken rules, with danger she had lived with for years. But he wasn't here. He couldn't be here. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to breathe, but the air tasted too thick, like damp soil and old rotting wood. The scent she always smelled when she walked past the hospital's coma ward. She opened her eyes again. The hallway behind her was empty. The stairs below were dim. The shadow she had seen moments ago was gone. But the footprints remained. Claire knelt, her fingers brushing the muddy trail. It was cold, wet, smeared, as if someone had walked through the house moments earlier. But the most horrifying detail was the pattern of her own footprints. They didn't lead out of the bedroom. They led into it. Like she had returned from somewhere. Her throat tightened. Where had she gone? What had she done? She had no memory, no images, no flashes, not even a sensation of movement. Only the hollow ache of sleepwalking, as if something had scooped her consciousness out and worn her body like an abandoned coat. She swallowed hard and forced herself down the stairs, gripping the banister, step by slow step. Every creak beneath her weight made her flinch. Every shadow made her breath stutter. Halfway down, she stopped. There was movement in the living room. A faint shifting. A soft scrape, like fabric dragging against the floor. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice nothing but cracked air. Silence. She took the last few steps and paused at the bottom. The living room was dark except for the faint streetlight leaking through the half-closed blinds, slicing the room into pale strips. Dust floated in the beams. The air felt colder here. She stepped forward. And froze. Someone was sitting on the far couch. A figure. A silhouette. The darkness swallowed the details, but she saw the shape of broad shoulders, the angle of a head that drooped slightly to one side, the heavy posture of a body that shouldn't have been able to move. "Michael," she breathed. The figure didn't respond. Didn't turn. Didn't flinch. Claire took a shaky step forward. "Michael? Is that you?" Nothing. Her nails dug into her palms. The room felt smaller now, like the walls pressed inward. She took another step, and the floorboard beneath her groaned. The figure twitched. Claire choked on a gasp. Slowly, achingly slowly, the head turned toward her. There was no face. No eyes. No mouth. Just darkness. A deep, empty hollow where a face should have been. Claire stumbled backward, crashing into the coffee table. The sound shattered the silence like a gunshot. Her breath hitched in short, animalistic gasps. The faceless head tilted. Something inside its darkness rippled. Moved. Shifted like smoke trying to take shape. Then, from that emptiness, a voice leaked out. But not Michael's. It was hers. "Claire, why did you leave us?" Her whole body went cold. Her own voice. Coming from the faceless thing wearing her husband's silhouette. "No," she whispered. "No, stop, stop." The figure rose to its feet. Not fluidly. Not naturally. Like a puppet being lifted by invisible strings, joints jerking at odd angles, limbs dangling loosely before snapping into place. Claire backed away until her spine hit the wall. "Stay away," she breathed. The thing stepped toward her. One dragging step. Another. Its shadow stretched across the floor, long and distorted, reaching her feet before its body did. Her voice again, echoing, warped, taunting. "You walked away from the crash." Her heart hammered. "You left us in the dark." She shook her head violently. "I didn't, I tried, You saved yourself." The creature's arm rose, bending the wrong way at the elbow, its fingers curling in a slow beckoning motion. "Come back to sleep, Claire." Her vision blurred with panic. She lunged sideways, fleeing into the hallway, slamming the door behind her. Her trembling hands scrambled to lock it. She pressed her ear against the wood, listening. No footsteps. No breathing. No scratching. Only silence. A silence worse than any noise. After a few moments, maybe minutes, her breathing steadied just enough for her to open her eyes. And when she did, she saw something that turned her blood to ice. Standing in front of her, reflected in the glass of the hallway mirror, was herself. Sleepwalking. Barefoot. Eyes closed. And dripping mud. She watched her own reflection raise a hand and place it against the mirror. Except she hadn't moved. Her knees buckled. Because the reflection wasn't copying her. It was trying to get out. Claire stared at the hallway mirror, her breath coming in sharp, painful bursts. Her reflection, the wrong reflection, stood inside the glass like a trapped ghost wearing her face. But it wasn't the stillness of it that terrified her. It was the movement. Her real body was frozen. But the reflection lifted its mud-stained hand. And pressed it harder against the inside of the glass. A crack spidered outward from where the reflection's palm met the surface. A small, sharp tick-tick echoed as hairline fractures crawled across the mirror like branching veins. Claire stumbled back, her spine hitting the opposite wall. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her vocal cords felt pinned by invisible fingers. The reflection slowly lowered its hand. Then its eyelids, closed just moments before, peeled open. Claire's heart jolt stopped. Her reflection's eyes were pure white. No iris. No pupil. Two whited-out orbs staring through her like she was the one trapped behind the glass. "Stop," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Stop, please." The reflection smiled. Not her smile. Not a human smile. The corners stretched too high, too wide, too forced, as though something inside her face was tugging the skin from beneath. The smile deepened. The mirror creaked. Claire turned and ran. She didn't think. Didn't breathe. She just bolted down the hallway, her socked feet sliding dangerously on the floor. She reached her bedroom and slammed the door behind her once more, twisting the lock so hard she felt the metal scrape her skin. For a long moment, she stood with her forehead pressed against the cool wood, listening. Silence. No footsteps. No glass shattering. No whispers. Her chest rose and fell in frantic shudders. But something in the silence felt wrong, off, like the air itself was holding its breath. She forced herself to step away from the door and turn toward her bed. The room felt colder, the shadows thicker. The ceiling fan spun lazily, blade slicing through the darkness in uneven rhythms. She wiped her face with shaking hands. "Get it together," she whispered. "It's just stress. Grief. Trauma. Sleepwalking hallucinations. That's all." The words didn't comfort her. They sounded like lies spoken by someone drowning. Her eyes drifted toward her nightstand. Her phone. She grabbed it with trembling fingers and opened her call log. She wanted to call someone, anyone. A friend. A neighbor. The hospital. A random number. Someone who could tell her she wasn't losing her mind. But the last 3 outgoing calls made her freeze. 1:13 a.m., dialed, Regional Medical Center. 1:46 a.m., dialed, Michael Avery, Room 418. 2:02 a.m., dialed, Home Landline. She stared at the third one, her blood turning to ice. She lived alone. Who had picked up? Her stomach twisted. She tapped the entry and pressed the phone to her ear, praying it would go straight to voicemail. It didn't. The line rang once. Then someone breathed into the receiver. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. Claire. Her husband's voice whispered through the phone. "You were just here." Her heart lurched. She dropped the phone, and it hit the carpeted floor with a soft thud. The call disconnected on its own, the screen going dark. "No," she whispered. "No, I wasn't, I didn't." Her pulse hammered as she picked the phone back up and opened her voicemail. There was a new message from the hospital's line. Time stamped at 1:51 a.m. She pressed play. Static crackled. Then she heard it, her own voice, thin and breathy. "Michael, can you hear me? Please. I'm so tired. I can't keep doing this. You have to wake up." Static. Then a deeper voice, his voice, whispered. "I already did." Claire's legs gave out. She sank onto the edge of the bed, covering her mouth to stop a scream. She never went to the hospital. She would remember that. Wouldn't she? Her breathing grew sharp and painful. Panic clawed at her ribs. She stood, pacing, wanting, needing, to escape the room. But as she approached the door, something made her stop. A shadow beneath the door. Someone standing on the other side. Very slowly. Very deliberately. The doorknob turned. Metal clicked softly. The lock strained. Claire backed away, step by trembling step, until the backs of her legs hit the bed. The doorknob twisted harder. Then harder. Rattling violently. The wood groaning under the force. Claire slapped her hands over her mouth, tears streaming. "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop." The rattling ceased. Silence. Then. A soft tap. Right against the wood. Slow. Rhythmic. Tap. 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 Knuckles. Dragging down the surface. The voice that followed was barely above a breath. "Let me in, Claire." Her heart cracked like the mirror. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't monstrous. It sounded like Michael at the bedside, months ago, before the anger had swallowed him whole. It sounded like the man she once loved. "Let me in. I came home." Claire covered her ears. "Go away," she choked out. A beat of silence. Then the voice changed. Deeper. "Wrong. Rotting. Claire, you already opened the door once tonight." Her blood went cold. She hadn't. Had she? The knob twisted again, harder this time. The lock jiggled. The door shook. And Claire realized. She wasn't sleepwalking into nightmares. She was sleepwalking out of them. And something was following her back. Claire barely slept that night. She sat against her headboard with her knees pulled to her chest, trembling so violently she could feel her bones vibrating. Every creak in the house made her flinch. Every brush of wind against the window felt like fingers tapping. She waited for the doorknob to turn again. For the shadow to return. For the whisper to drift through the cracks. But nothing came. And somehow that terrified her even more. By morning, sunlight seeped inside through the blinds. But the light felt thin, weak, as though it was afraid to enter fully. Claire pushed herself out of bed on shaky legs. She needed proof that last night was just a dream. Just stress. Just trauma manifesting as hallucinations. She repeated those words like a mantra. The hallway looked normal now. No mud. No footprints. No cracked mirror. She approached the mirror slowly, dread curling in her gut. She half expected her reflection to move on its own. But it didn't. It stared back at her, tired, pale, haunted, but normal. Claire let out a breath. She walked downstairs, each step slow, careful. When she reached the bottom, she stopped cold. The back door was unlocked. Wide open. Cold morning air seeped inside, carrying the smell of damp earth, and a faint muddy trail leading in from the yard. She stepped closer, her heart hammering. Bare footprints. Her size. Walking into the house. Claire staggered back, her mind spinning. No, 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 no. She grabbed her phone, hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped it, and opened her call history. The late-night calls were still there. They hadn't been dreams. She backed away from the door, shutting it and locking it twice, her breath sharp and uneven. Then something caught her attention. A sound. A soft creak. From below her feet. The basement. Claire's stomach dropped. She turned slowly toward the basement door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly ajar, just a sliver, and she could see darkness breathing behind. She hadn't opened it. She never opened it. She avoided that door like a wound. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "No, not again." Another creak. Louder this time. A board shifting under weight. Someone was down there. Or, something. Her legs moved forward despite her mind screaming to run. She stopped a few feet from the basement door, heart pounding so wildly it felt like it might bruise her ribs. The air around the door was colder. Not normal cold. Basement cold. Grave cold. She pushed the door open with one shaking finger. The smell hit her first, damp concrete, soil, mildew. And something else. Something metallic. Something like dried blood. "Hello?" she whispered, though every instinct begged her to stay silent. No answer. The basement steps stretched downward, swallowed by darkness. The light bulb chain swayed slightly, as if someone had just tugged it. Claire reached for the chain and pulled. The bulb flickered on, weak and buzzing, casting long, jittery shadows across the concrete floor. For a moment, Claire saw nothing. Then she saw them. Her footprints. Muddy. Clear. Leading down the stairs. Not once. Not twice. Dozens of times. As if she had been going down there every night. Claire covered her mouth, choking on her breath. Tears burned behind her eyes. No. I don't go down there. I don't. But she did. Her footprint said otherwise. She forced her foot onto the first step. Then another. The old wood groaned beneath her weight. By the fourth step, she could see something on the basement floor. A shape. She froze. There, in the far left corner, hunched over and unmoving, was a figure. Her breath caught. It was shaped like a man, broad, tall, shoulders slumped as if in exhaustion. His head hung low, chin almost touching his chest. His arms dangled lifelessly at his sides. "Michael," she whispered, even though she knew, he couldn't be there. The figure didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't react. Claire's veins filled with ice. She stepped backward, her foot landing too hard on the step behind her. The wood cracked and she nearly slipped. The sound echoed like a thunderclap in the basement. The figure twitched. Claire gasped, stumbling up the stairs, grabbing the railing to keep herself from falling. The head rose slowly, far too slowly, like a puppet being yanked upward. Eyes opened. White. Empty. Dead. The mouth stretched unnaturally wide. A voice seeped out, hollow and wrong. "You visited last night." Claire bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut so violently the frame rattled. She locked it. Then pushed a chair against it. Then another. Her chest heaved. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred with panic. A sound came from the other side of the door. A single, slow knock. Then her own voice whispered. "Claire, come finish what you started." Her entire body broke into a violent tremor. She backed away, tears spilling down her cheeks. She felt it deep inside her bones. She hadn't been sleepwalking alone. Something had been walking with her. And now, it wanted her fully awake. Claire didn't leave the basement doorway for almost an hour. She sat curled on the floor, her back against the wall, eyes fixed on the door as though it might explode open at any moment. She didn't blink. She barely breathed. Every muscle in her body was tight as piano wire. But the knocking never came again. No voice whispered her name. No footsteps dragged across the basement floor. And that silence was the most terrifying part. It was waiting. For her. Eventually, her legs grew numb. She pushed herself up slowly, staggering toward the living room. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Her mind felt like a frayed rope, about to snap. She needed to calm herself. To think. To hide. To run. She didn't know. Instead, she found herself drifting toward the couch. The same couch where she had seen the faceless figure days before. She sat, her breath trembling. She grabbed a blanket and clutched it to her chest like a shield. The morning had fully brightened, but sunlight didn't reach her bones. Her body still shivered in waves. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. Just to breathe. Just. A soft creak made her eyes snap open. Someone was upstairs. The board above her bedroom. Her daughter's old room. Claire stood so quickly she nearly fell. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She forced herself up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. As she reached the second floor, the air grew colder. The hallway seemed dimmer, though the lights were on. The door to her daughter's room stood slightly open. A faint music box tune drifted out. Soft. Slow. Wrong. Claire froze. That music box had been destroyed in the crash. She pushed the door open with trembling fingers. The room looked different. Everything was back in place. The tiny pink bed. The stuffed animals arranged in a line. The shelves filled with picture books. The moon-shaped nightlight plugged into the wall. It was all here. As though the accident had never happened. And in the center of the room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, was a small shape. A little girl. Her daughter. Emily. Claire stopped breathing. She blinked hard, tears blurring her vision. Emily. The child didn't answer. Didn't look up. She just continued slowly turning the handle of the old music box, head tilted down, dark hair covering her face. Claire took a step inside. "Baby, it's Mommy, look at me." Emily's hand paused. The music stopped on a single lingering note. Her head lifted slowly. Too slowly. Like a doll being pulled upright. Her eyes were not Emily's. They were wide. White. Empty. Claire gasped, one hand flying to her mouth. The child's voice came out soft, breathy, and hollow. "Mommy, why didn't you stop the car?" Claire staggered back as if struck. "No, Emily, baby, it wasn't, there was ice, I lost control." Emily tilted her head too far, the neck bending at an unnatural angle. "Why did you save yourself?" Tears streamed down Claire's cheeks. "I tried to save you. I tried." Emily smiled. It wasn't a child's smile. The skin around her lips stretched too thin, too tight, revealing a darkness underneath, as if her mouth wasn't opening, but tearing. "Daddy didn't wake up," the girl whispered. "He wanted to tell you something." Claire backed toward the door, shaking violently. The room felt smaller. The air tasted metallic, thick with dread. Emily rose to her feet. Her movement was jerky, unnatural, like her bones didn't bend right beneath her skin. As she stepped toward Claire, her small bare feet left faint muddy prints on the carpet. Claire's sob caught in her throat. The child reached out her hand, tiny, pale, trembling. But her fingers were wrong. Too long. Too sharp. The tips smudged the air like smoke. "Come back downstairs, Mommy." Emily's voice deepened, layered with something older, darker. "Come see what you did." Claire shook her head violently. "Stay away." Emily's head twitched, snapping sideways like something was breaking. Inside her neck. Her lips peeled back. Then, suddenly, her eyes changed. No longer white. Blue. Emily's real eyes. Wide. Terrified. Begging. "Mommy, help me," the little girl whispered. Claire cried out, stumbling forward instinctively, reaching for her daughter. Emily's face twisted back into the white-eyed horror. She lunged. Claire screamed and slammed the door shut, nearly crushing her own fingers. She fell backward in the hallway, her chest heaving violently. From the other side of the door, she heard scratching. Light at first. Then harder. Faster. Then the child's voice, high, sing-song, wrong. "You can't keep closing doors, Mommy." The scratching stopped. Silence. Soon, the voice whispered through the wood, "You'll remember everything." Claire crawled backward on shaking limbs, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Because she finally understood. This thing, whatever it was, wasn't trying to scare her. It was trying to show her something. Something she had buried so deep. She no longer knew if she was sleepwalking through nightmares. Or waking up inside them. The night tasted different, thicker, metallic, as if the air itself had been wrung out and left to rot. Amelia stood at the top of the staircase, barefoot, her nightgown clinging damply to her skin. She didn't remember walking here. She didn't remember leaving her room. But the moonlight traced a path down the hallway like a cold, silver finger pointing her forward. Her body moved without consent. A sleepwalker again. But tonight felt final. The house exhaled deeply around her, floorboards groaning, walls trembling, shadows shifting like they were stretching after a long rest. Somewhere below, she heard the dragging sound again, the slow scrape she had come to dread, the one that sounded wet, deliberate, and hungry. Her husband's footsteps. But he was still in a coma. Wasn't he? Amelia gripped the banister as her mind wavered between believing and rejecting the impossible. She had seen him too many times now, standing behind doors, peering through windows, lingering in the hallway like a shadow made of flesh. She had heard him calling her name, the familiar slur of anger he once spat after a drink too many. She had felt him standing over her bed, breathing, waiting. Or maybe that wasn't him at all. Maybe it was something wearing him like a mask. Her daughter's name echoed faintly from the bottom of the stairs. Mommy. A soft, broken whisper, too small, too hopeful. Amelia's knees weakened. Lily. Her voice was a crack in a storm. The word drifted from her mouth like ash. She started down the staircase, each step creaking with a softness that felt intentional, as though the house was watching, anticipating, savoring. Halfway down, she saw a shape at the foot of the stairs, tiny, trembling, wrapped in the night like a shadow curled into itself. Long hair. Bare feet. Lily. Baby, Amelia's voice shattered entirely. She hurried down, heart ripping itself open. Baby, I'm here, I'm right here. But when she reached the bottom step, the small figure twitched in a jerking, wrong motion. The head rotated, slow, 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 far past where a child's neck should allow. Too far. And when the face finally came into view, Amelia froze, her breath turning to ice. It wasn't her daughter. Not really. The face was hollow, bruised, and swollen. Mangled from the accident. Lips split. Eyes clouded and leaking tears of something too dark to be blood. Mommy, why did you leave me? Amelia stumbled backward, one hand gripping her chest. I didn't, Lily, I swear. But the figure jerked upright, limbs cracking like branches snapping under weight. Then it laughed, softly, sweetly, in Lily's voice, and began walking toward her, puppet-like, legs dragging in uneven sweeps. Amelia backed away. Stop, please stop. The lights in the house flickered. The walls pulsed. The sound of dragging footsteps grew louder, another presence approaching from the kitchen, heavier, slower, drenched in malice. Her husband. His silhouette emerged, towering and misshapen, as if something twisted his body from the inside. His face was a black smear, but his mouth, too wide, too flat, grinned. Amelia. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped animal. No. You're not real, she whispered, voice trembling. Neither of you. Her husband lurched closer, head twitching with each step. You did this to us. The house grew unbearably cold. Shadows swelled, folding over themselves like ink spilling underwater. Both figures advanced. Amelia ran. She sprinted down the hallway, her breath slicing through her throat. She didn't know where she was going, only that she could not let them touch her. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. Doors multiplied. Shadows reached for her feet. Her mind spiraled, unraveling. Then she saw it, the front door, standing wide open, moonlight pouring inside like salvation. She threw herself toward it. But as she crossed the threshold, her ankle twisted unnaturally and she collapsed onto the porch. Gasping. The night outside was impossibly still. The trees didn't move. The wind didn't blow. The stars didn't blink. This wasn't escape. It was another layer of the nightmare. Amelia turned back toward the doorway. Her husband and daughter stood there side by side, swaying like they were caught in a slow, invisible tide. Their vacant eyes glowed faintly. "Come back inside," her husband murmured. "You belong with us." Amelia crawled backward into the yard. "I don't belong to you." Lily's voice floated toward her, soft as a lullaby. "Mommy, sleep." And the world tilted. Her limbs grew heavy. Her vision darkened around the edges. She was sleepwalking again, no longer in control, drifting toward them, step by step, no matter how she screamed inside her mind. Her daughter reached for her. Her husband opened his arms. Amelia's final conscious thought flickered like a dying flame. If this is a dream, why can't I wake up? The door swallowed her. The house closed. And the night finally slept. The end.